Welcome to NewsNation. I have my Paschal pink on. Easter is Sunday, and its message of rebirth and renewal, a beautiful and universal motivation. Lord knows I need it, and many of you feel as I do, so rebirth and renewal to you, brothers and sisters. Now, you may have noticed, we most often apply this hope, this aspiration for change to the individual. But the idea, the projection, the destiny is every bit as applicable to the we as to the me, as in society. And I think we, the people, as a polity, as a society, need rebirth and renewal as the active pursuit of a more perfect union indeed. Now, of course, tonight we're going to take on the Garcia case, the Metcalf stabbing, the Tallahassee mass shooting, and the potential dead end in Ukraine, and all of them matter individually as well as part of the overall reason for the division in America. But I must say, I do believe both poison political parties handpick, exaggerate, and obsess, yes, with the help of the media, on situations like these to prioritize some kind of real or perceived advantage. And in so doing, they are finding ways to divide us when there is a much more powerful and obvious unifying cause. And in that way, they are each and all a distraction from what our government should be fixated on, the highest target for the manifestation of the Easter mandate for us, rebirthing our middle class by renewing our way of balancing who gets to cash in on us as the most dominant consumer market in the history of the world and how we benefit by it. Not just those doing the selling, especially when they left here to make it somewhere else to our great, great detriment. Now, this is much harder than any of the other topics. Arguing about perceived bad hombres, or guns, or violence, or some other boogeyman. They're all attempts to show what is wrong. And more so, which side is worse on any rebirth and renewal of how we balance American families, of the corporate class. That's tough. That's about solutions. That's about taking on the powerful, the people who put money in the politicians' pockets. That's hard. So even when it is mentioned, poked at, that's all it is, a poke and a retreat. President Trump, I argue to you, is a one-trick pony with tariffs. No, it's not too soon to say that. Of course, there's a long way to go, and taking on China or any of the attendant dynamics is the right move. But we already know there is no more strategic solution at play than what he has said already. He has the target right, taking on China, and tariffs are a tool, but they are a blunt instrument, and they are only one tool in what is necessarily a box of many. What are they? He's got to figure it out. But there clearly hasn't been any forethought of what to do other than what comes naturally to Trump, which is to be aggressive and go big. Okay? But for the right, you're more than a tariff or a tax cut away. And for the left, you're more than a tax increase and a government program away from restoring this. There will be no easy, simple shortcut. Okay? See, that's why tariffs are more tactic than even a tax. And that's why Trump kept pulling back, especially when his donors got on him about it. So in the interest of rebirth and renewal, let us at least all come to common ground about the need for change. And let me start by saying, while China is the proof of the problem, they only did what America and the World Trade Organization enabled them to do. Don't hate the player, only hate the game. 2001, we all think 9/11. Certainly focused us on terror, but our obsession with Islamists distracted us from the financial terror that would hurt millions of Americans for decades to come. That is when China joined the WTO, 2001. Now, the convenient pivot away from this, and you'll see it online in response to what I'm saying right now, is, well, why doesn't he blame the Democrats? It's all going to be about political blame. And that is a great salvo. It's a great jab. Bing. must be the Democrats. Why? Bill Clinton was in control. See, that's what Trumpers people are saying about why they've got to deal with China, right? It was Clinton. And you know what? They're right. But he didn't do it alone, did he? If you go back and look, sure, he negotiated aspects of it, but it wasn't unilateral. And for America to even be in part of a deal with China, what did they need? Activating legislation, something called PNTR, Permanent Normal Trade Relations. And you know what that required? Congress. And you know what they did? They voted on it. And do you know who wanted to pass it? A lot more Republicans than Democrats in the House and the Senate. Fact. They don't sell that to me on Twitter, though. I know, because it's not convenient. So don't let them divide us on who got us here. And let's talk about how to get the hell out of here, okay? A serious and obvious common concern. We just need to agree that what was birthed at that time now needs a rebirth and renewal in a much different form. Again, the proof of the problem is clear. Data. In the 70s, the middle class earned 60% of the income in the U.S., and the wealthy earned just under 30%. After China joined the WTO in 2001, the wealthy started earning more of the income in this country than the middle class. In the 70s, 1 in 5 worked in manufacturing. After China joined the WTO, the number of manufacturing jobs plummeted by the millions, and today, only 1 in 10 work in manufacturing, and yet America is still the second largest manufacturer on the planet, despite having so much of its potential taken by corporate gluttons who fled to China with cheap labor, lack of regulations, or environmental concerns, or regard for the people doing the work. And they made billions for themselves, and just as importantly, they took from millions of Americans and left a big hole in the American job market, millions of jobs deep. In the 70s, CEOs made 20 times more than their workers. It's plenty. Throughout the 90s, started to grow, but nothing like what happened after China joined the WTO. Extremely high, exponentially high. Look at it. I mean, you tell me. That has to be what capitalism is. That's what it is. That's the only definition. Fact, in 1990, China was the 8th largest manufacturing country. After the WTO, in less than a decade, China was enabled to erase over a half-century of American manufacturing supremacy. Look, as China's manufacturing grew, take a look at their extreme poverty rate. Look at it. Now look at ours. I mean, are you serious? It's all tied to this move. The Chinese sell us what we need, not just cheap stuff, the technological tools of life and the materials we need to make what we need for ourselves. They have trained up their people more than we have to do sophisticated jobs that they have that we were supposed to have, that could secure a generation. The question is, for whom? For China or for America? They are getting us coming and going, literally. And it was America, America, America that allowed it. And Americans who gave away our potential to them. So while I will take on the other stories of the day, okay? When it comes to this most holy occasion and its divine promise of rebirth and renewal, let us focus it where it matters the most, on all of us, and what would benefit the most of us. Let us recognize the need for rebirth of what drove the prosperity in America, and let us insist on a renewal of focus and effort on the people who say they want to lead us, to reject the temptation to find ways to keep us distracted and divided, and instead make things right. Hey, thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget, click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.